Hello, I am Dr. Maanda Tshifularo, and on today's episode of the SuperLead Podcast series, we are joined by a trailblazer who's not only observing the future, but he's building it. Musa Kalenga is a visionary entrepreneur, global thought leader, and one of the continent's most forward-thinking voices at the intersection of technology, marketing, and human potential. As Group CEO of the Brave Group and co-founder of Bridge Labs, Musa has pioneered how brands merge human creativity with AI through his bold framework, the Artificial General Marketing Intelligence. And in this episode, we unpack his book, The Brave Code, which traces his journey with Brave Group to pioneer a shared value creative enterprise offered as a blueprint for other organizations across Africa. Musa, welcome to SuperLead Podcast.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. So today we're going to unpack your book, The Brave Code.
Yeah.
And before we get to that, we want to just kind of learn about the author. We want to kind of hear a story of Musa from as early as possible. And on this podcast, we've got time.
Yeah.
So start us as early, just walk us all the way to where we are today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the invitation, firstly.
Lovely.
As early as possible. So I don't really remember being in my mother's womb, so I can't go that far back, but I'll start where it makes sense.
Yeah.
I was born in Zambia. I was born in Lusaka.
Okay.
My parents, my father is from the Copper Belt in Zambia.
Sure.
My mother's from Malawi.
All right.
Yeah. So they got married in Lusaka, and that's where I was born.
Sure.
Spent less than a year there. Then my parents both moved to Scotland.
Okay.
So my father was an academic, so he went to do his master's degree in Scotland.
Sure.
So he spent the beginning half of my life in very cold weather in Glasgow, as they call it.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. I don't remember much of it. I remember our neighbors who now, many years later, found me on Facebook. And, it's just one of those serendipitous moments where I know nothing about them, but they seem to feel like they know about me.
Wow.
So that was Scotland. And then from there, we moved back to Zambia for a short period. Then my father moved. He was starting to work in the consulting space.
Oh, good. The most noble profession in the whole world.
Says he, right? so he worked for Proudfoot back in the day. It was before they did the merger with Ernst & Young and that.
Okay.
So we went and we lived in Botswana for a number of years.
Right.
At the same time, he was involved in the university there as well. Started their bookshop and a few other things. So I spent some of my formative years in Gaborone.
Okay.
Which also have very fond memories. It's a small place, so everyone that lived in Gaborone pretty much knew each other.
Sure.
And very communal. But at the same time, quite an international experience because of the school that I went to at the time.
Okay.
A lot of international friends I met, and ironically, a lot of South African teachers at the time.
Okay.
Because a lot of the Afrikaans teachers were seeking refuge away from SA at the time, and they ended up teaching in places like Botswana, as an example.
Interesting.
So it was a really that was probably one of my most memorable periods growing up in Botswana and the things that I got up to there. And then my father, for some odd reason, decided that he wanted to come to South Africa.
Okay.
It was a strange time to do that. It was literally 92, 93. The news wasn't great. The media narrative wasn't fantastic. My mother was not convinced that this was the place to come in 93.
Yeah.
But we packed up our bags. He got an offer here from the Proudfoot office here, and literally drove from Botswana to South Africa. Got here around about late 94, and it was a very interesting time to be in South Africa.
Yeah.
Having not grown up here and having understood the dynamics and all that stuff, it was a little bit jading. And when you're young, you're kind of not sure why things are the way they are. And,
Yes.
So went to a couple of schools. The dynamic in the school environment was also very peculiar because my orientation was not racial, so it was, and everybody else's was. So it was always a very strange interaction when, I'd equally interact with black people and white people, and at the time it was a bit strange. I had two really interesting friends, a very Afrikaans guy and a very, very English guy, and they they never really used to get along. So I was kind of used to be there
in the middle.
Yeah. So early days of being an SA were fascinating because a lot of social learning that we had to figure out and wrap our heads around. But be that as it may, as we do, we adapt. Went to a couple of primary schools. Then I went to varsity at Wits, did my undergraduate at Wits. Which was also a fascinating time. I started a couple of businesses while I was doing my undergrad.
Right.
As one does.
Just by the way, in between that class and assignment, a few businesses.
100%. In between BCom Law and Stats.
Sure.
So Wits was phenomenal. I mean, I loved my experience there.
Sure.
I probably should have been more of a student than I was, but I was busy running around trying to do all sorts of things because I'd had multiple interests. I was always, I was always involved in business or doing some kind of dance, arts and culture or something. So I'd always
anything but
the thing I was supposed to do. Which has stood me in good stead, many years later. And that's where I started my first business, which I exited. It was called Maanda Tshifularo. It was a research business. It was started at a time when there wasn't much data being gathered on South African youth. So there was one particular research study called Generation Next, but it was started as the HDI study of youth. It's now sponsored by Sunday Times, but the very first part of that I was the chairman of. And so that made me realize there was a big opportunity from a research perspective to gather data on South African youth. So at the time, our sample, we used to go to Fourways Mall on a Friday night and interview all the people there, and that would be our youth sample for South Africa. It was quite an interesting process, but that helped me to learn that there was an opportunity for people who had insight into South African youth, and particularly the big corporates that were now trying to figure out how they target and how they grow new consumers, yada yada. So my first business was really about that, just helping corporates bridge that gap.
Excellent.
And
this in varsity.
In varsity.
Okay.
And we started playing with technology even back then, right? We started experimenting with, back Facebook was still very new. So, you could have like a closed group on Facebook, and we used to invite our clients to closed groups and then invite a bunch of young people. And we used to show almost like a little bit of a petri dish and showing clients how young people talk, the kind of things that they're interested in. And so we started playing around with technology very early. Because that's, it's been just my natural leaning. We built our first platform back then. It was called Stupid Questions. So we had a database of young people, and we used to send them 5 questions, and we used to say you have to answer within an hour, and then we send you airtime. Very simple model. So it helped us to kind of innovate, within the research space, because as you know, research supposed to take long. It's supposed to be robust.
But then you can get the data back in within an hour.
Exactly.
And airtime was everything.
Exactly. Back then, that was like juice, right?
And you will get this airtime from, or because you will still charge your client.
Excellent. So we just on-sell the airtime.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I think the understanding of how technology could really solve problems started. And then that business exited, spent a bit of time with Mr. Kalafeng. So I became the MD of a business that he was running called IHOP. IHOP. And IHOP World was also trying to understand the new world of social media and all that kind of stuff. Back then, Tebe wasn't as active on social media as he is today. You'd think it was a different human being. But when I was speaking to him and I was like, social media is the next thing. He was like, no, man, I don't buy this thing. I'm like, I'm telling you it's going to be. And he was like, nah, because obviously he's a classic brand builder. So I worked with him, built IHOP, did a couple of interesting projects with the brand leadership group.
Now, this is post-varsity.
This is post-varsity.
Okay.
Yeah, so I spent probably about 3 or 4 years working with Tebe in various different capacities, and then I kind of thought, let me try and see what this corporate thing is all about. So I got the opportunity to go and lead digital marketing for Nedbank.
Excellent.
Which was my first kind of job.
With an access card.
With an access card and leave and all these strange concepts that I'm like, what does this mean? But worked with a gent, worked with Sydney Mbele. Lovely guy. He knew that at the time he understood a lot about marketing, but this whole world of digital was new and all that stuff. So I spent about 4 years with Nedbank, which was a great experience. Great experience because I never fully understood the dynamics of a corporate environment. I was always trying to figure out why it takes so long to process invoices, things like that. But then being on the other side, you get an understanding.
I hope you figured it out better.
I have an inclination now.
Yeah.
And while I was at Nedbank, I did my MBA. I then was asked to start the Facebook Africa office.
Right.
So they were looking for a client partner for Sub-Sahara. At the time, they pretty much were servicing this continent from Dubai.
Sure.
So I got that job, and it was also really interesting because it was Facebook, right? Like everyone was wondering what happens at Facebook.
Yes.
What all that stuff. So I was super curious. I'd done my time in inverted commas in a traditional business. And I thought, let me go see what it's like to be in a tech company. It was phenomenal.
Sure.
It was phenomenal. It was just super hectic.
Sure.
Like all the things that they say are true. The speed.
Yes. Move fast and break things.
All of it is true.
Sure.
Right? All of it is true. And this is strange because I'm not the kind of guy that drinks the Kool-Aid and, wears the T-shirts, but I drank the Kool-Aid. I wore the T-shirts because I really believed in their purpose. I believed that they were trying to make the world more open and connected. I fundamentally believed it.
Sure.
So it was a whirlwind, and I spent a lot of time at that point, market developing here and the rest of the continent.
Yeah.
So I was spending a lot of time on airplanes, speaking to a lot of CMOs, CEOs, people trying to understand what Facebook can offer.
Yeah.
Which is a great experience for me. It was also quite challenging because I had just gotten married as well. So the travel agenda sometimes can be a bit wild.
Yeah.
It started to take its toll. And that's actually when I wrote my first book during that period, where I was going through a lot and trying to understand. And I really enjoyed my job. I enjoyed what I was doing, and then the conviction of being a father and a responsible husband and all that. It was quite challenging.
Yeah.
So I left Facebook. I think I did my time while I was here. We grew the business. From being in the context of South Africa, a medium-sized business, to being a big business. It was a wild ride, but I think I really enjoyed it.
And how long was that?
3.5, 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 3.5, 4 years. So it went well, and I have fond memories of my time there.
Lovely.
But I also always knew I was going to get back into entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So I kind of was looking for when and timing and how, and so having learned how to run and build technology businesses and teams, it was the right time. And that's when I went back into the streets, as they say.
Yeah.
I started by setting up a new business called Bridge Labs, which is a software engineering firm with my partner Kola.
Yeah.
We still run that business together. I'm just not operationally involved. And then a few years later, we made an investment with Mr. Kumalo and Karabo into the Brave Group.
Yeah.
Back then, it was called House of Brave.
Yes.
So we did a rebrand, and we've been on the journey with them. And recently, we acquired 100% of the business. So
excellent.
So that's what I'm kind of still doing.
Sure.
Trying to figure out how that goes. So that's hopefully in a nutshell.
The
story.
No. Thank you for the detail.
Yeah.
And then, so I've experienced this. I've written a book, and I just know how just painful and how long. And the question I have is, what's happening in the world that made you push through all the hours and necessitated this book?
So the Brave Code was, I always believe in writing about what you're going through.
Okay.
Right? I'm a firm believer in that. Because I think, number one, it's an authentic story without you having to think about authenticity.
Yeah.
And number two, you'll be surprised how many people are going through the same thing that you're going through.
I see.
So I try and avoid topics that aren't true to what I've physically experienced.
Okay.
So what I was going through when I was trying to write the Brave Code is that this new chapter of coming into an agency ultimately, and me having a love-hate relationship with the agency model.
Okay.
I'd always been very conflicted about the value equation when it comes to service businesses. You've been in consulting, so you understand the dynamic.
Yeah.
In advertising and in marketing agencies in particular, we have the master slave dynamic, and you don't have the upside.
Okay.
Right? Whereas consulting businesses, you've got the upside, and you've got a more equal relationship.
Yes.
So you walk into a client meeting and you tell the client what they don't know. We take orders.
Yes. And multiple repeats and
correct. Right. So I had some dissonance with that. Sure. Right. And when we came and we acquired the Brave Group, and they asked me to be the CEO, because initially I was just a shareholder, I had to define something that I believed.
Okay.
And I had to create something that I could rally behind myself.
Sure.
And so that's when I went into deep contemplation around this idea around shared value.
Okay.
And how that
Everybody using big was deep contemplation.
I don't know if there's any other way to put it.
Okay.
I was thinking a lot, okay?
Yes. Now you've upgraded me.
I was thinking a lot.
Roland, you knew this deep contemplation? Yes. All right.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Okay.
Because I was in conversation with myself. You know, when you're about to do something, I'm the kind of person that if I'm doing something, I believe in it wholeheartedly.
Excellent.
So if I haven't had that reckoning with myself, especially coming from a point where I didn't believe in the model,
sure,
I don't think I would have been able to lead effectively.
Okay.
So that's why I say it's deep contemplation.
Yeah.
And so the principle for me that started to surface that aligns to the entire being that is Musa Kalenga is this idea around creating value,
yes,
right? And this idea around creating shared value, right? The rising tide should lift all boats.
Excellent,
right? And a manifestation of that was the journey at the Brave Group.
Lovely. Now, what is this shared value?
So shared value is I suppose the acknowledgement that number one, we all operate in ecosystems.
Sure.
And you have to be mindful of the role of the ecosystem you're in as well as the dynamics of the ecosystem.
Okay.
Why you have to be aware of that is because you've got a role to play to make the ecosystem better.
Okay.
Right? So in scientific terms, they talk about this idea around closed ecosystems that can regenerate themselves.
Yes.
So when you go to a swamp or you go to the desert or a jungle, those ecosystems that have figured out the dynamics of regeneration.
Okay.
So on its own, it's completely self-sufficient because every single piece of that ecosystem knows what roles it plays.
Lovely.
And it makes the ecosystem better.
Sure.
So I really like that idea. I like the idea around shared value in the context of commerce, in the context of creativity, which is what we do. So the provocation is, can we use creativity to build shared value, right? Can we ask the clients the hard questions around how they show up, the things they're doing, the consumers that they're trying to speak to,
sure,
with the goal of making the ecosystem better.
Beautiful.
Right? So that's the idea around shared value. And the Brave Code is really just the principles, right? The management principles, some of the tough lessons I've had to learn, the inspiring moments that put the thoughts together and just kind of captured in a book.
Good. Should we start with just kind of going through a couple of principles? I imagine we might not cover everything because people still need to go buy the book and read for themselves. Yeah. So maybe we start about the principles and we could almost overlay the journey from this model that doesn't work and sort of your experience in seeing the model shift to a more shared value structure, which I imagine will be ideal for all types of businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the principles.
Yeah, look, I mean, the first and most important principle is a universal principle. So when I don't invent things, I don't claim to invent them.
Okay.
But I think it's particularly important for South African professionals that find themselves in situations where they're given a lot of responsibility. And that principle is around self-belief. Right?
Okay.
We all know the idea around being an imposter.
Yes.
The imposter syndrome. And so the first principle of shared value is belief in self.
Right.
Right. You should be there. You're capable of being there, and you can add value in that space.
Sure.
It sounds very basic and very simple.
Yes.
But you'll be surprised at how many people find themselves in environments where they don't feel like they should be there.
Yeah.
They always feel less than.
Yeah.
So the principle of self-belief is really core to shared value.
Wow.
If we go back to, as I said, my lived example of the dynamics that most creative or marketing agencies have with their clients, I refer to it very respectfully as a master-slave scenario. A slave generally is orientated around the belief that they are not worthy.
Sure.
The slave is orientated around the belief that they're there to serve other people and never be served.
Sure.
So that very important self-belief principle is one of the departure points around the idea around shared value.
Right.
So once you believe that and you fundamentally believe that, you show up differently.
And how do you move from this sort of self-disbelief or imposter to kind of go, okay, I believe in myself? Is it a decision? Or is there a journey of reflection, or how have you found that switch?
I think it's a combination of making the mind understand. So it is a decision, but I also think if you are mindful of the scenarios you put yourself in where you can reinforce the decision, it just accelerates, right? So if you, and it's not always the work context, it's not always a formal environment. It's putting yourself into spaces where you can reinforce the fact that you can add value and you've got the ability to add value. And the more you do that for yourself, the easier it will be for you to show up naturally with
and
this
start
idea
to
on
believe this
100%.
based on
100%.
the wow. And now self-belief. Okay, next one.
So self-belief is one. The second, I speak a lot about the characters or the actors that are in the industry, marketing, advertising, and communication. And you have to understand the ecosystem that you're in, right? You have to. It's almost like, if you're going to operate from the principle where you don't know how and why things work the way they work.
I see.
And you're going to be trying to add value, you just won't. You'll be almost like wheel spinning, right? Because you don't know what the levers are.
Yes.
So once you understand the ecosystem that you operate in, and you've been able to come from a point of self-belief, that's where there's a catalytic effect of being able to have impact, right? That's when you now know how it works. You will know many entrepreneurs that have, just have almost like a Midas touch. They come into a sector, an industry, or a business, and they just turn things around, right? They've got the self-belief. They understand exactly how that ecosystem works. And when the two collide, it's just like magic. Right? And we take it for granted because that takes a lot of time. I often speak within that same principle to young people about the time it takes to fully understand the system. I always refer to the people who do this really well are Asians, right?
Say more.
When Asians go to, and you can find them in every corner of every African country. And they'll go to a random village somewhere. And they'll spend some. Now, Nigerian brothers do the same thing. They'll go time and they'll just spend time observing. They'll just watch what's happening. They'll watch what people are eating, watch what people are wearing, what people are doing, and then a year later they'll open a shop. Right?
They do.
Because they've understood, right? They've taken the time to understand what the ecosystem is about. Why are these things happening? And they can do that without any strategic framework or nothing like that. You can just go there and watch and observe.
Watch and observe and understand the ecosystem.
Absolutely. So we I think as young people sometimes and black professionals, you try to get so fast to the, let me add value, let me do the thing, but you haven't taken the time just understand how all this thing fits together. Because before you were there were people there. Before you were there were processes.
There's ways of fucking the rules and the levers
and people
in
get
the
frustrated.
industry.
Yeah, they get frustrated because they don't do that observation. So that's the second thing. Self-belief, understand the ecosystem that you're operating in. The third thing is, one of the challenges I always have with when I, speak to young people is the gift of time, right? You have to, and once again, this is not rocket science. You have to just apply yourself. You just have to apply yourself, right? You
just put in the hours.
You just have to apply yourself, right? We're in a world where, unfortunately, there is a kind of feeling, a belief, or whatever you want to call it, that because things can happen so quickly because of technology and advancements thereof, it devalues, putting in the time, putting in the effort. It almost makes it seem uncool, right? So you want to just get to the thing that's going to have the value. Now, yes, it's possible if you're, 1 in a million or whatever the stat would be. But on average, the normal human being is going to have to put in the time. Whatever the time directionally is, it's going to be able to serve you better in the long run. And you won't just be able to get where you need to go. And then the final, kind of broad principle, there's about 6 or 7.
We can do 4 today.
Is about the principle of paying it forward. So the Brave Code is, because it's a self-sustaining ecosystem. If you get it right, you have to figure out how to help other people get it right.
Oh man, right? That's good.
You have to.
That's very good.
That's always been a big part of my personal philosophy around how I mentor young people, how I bring them into organization. I always drum it in from an early age that your responsibility here is not just to succeed on your own. It's to figure out how you replicate and scale whatever you've experienced to someone else. Right? And when you put those things together, as I said, it makes the ecosystem better for everyone.
Oh wow. Right, that's good. And just tell me about the journey now. You find this agency, it operates this way. What did it have to take to kind of shift the rest of the organization, the model to a more shared value model?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still on the journey, but the first part was to make people understand that there's an alternative.
Oh wow! Okay, that's good. That's good already.
Because you get into a situation where this is how we've always done it. You get into a situation where you've got people that have worked in the biggest agencies in the country, and then you inherit them, and they've got their own way of doing things. So the first point of departure is to be clear that there's a different way of doing it, and we are choosing to do it differently.
Sure.
It's harder than it sounds because, and especially creatives, creatives are fascinating people. They are supposed to have the most, latitude when it comes to newness and doing it, but they are the most dogmatic in how they like to do what they need to do. They figure out their thing and they stick to their thing, right? And when you come and you say, no, try, they will, this is how I do my thing, right? And in the process of I thought that they were going to be the ones that wanted to innovate and push, but they were the ones like, this is how I do what I need to do, and this is how I want to continue to do what I need to do. So it's very difficult to say to them, there's another way of doing it.
Right.
So I struggled in the beginning, because when you start talking about shared value, conceptually, it was very difficult for people to grapple with what it meant. Their lived experience in different marketing agencies, etc., was always very extractive.
Yes.
So they were always in contexts where they were made to put far more in than they ever took out. They were always put in contexts where they were never fully appreciated, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So when you say there's a new way of doing it, everyone kind of looks at you like, what's the catch?
Where's the but? Where's the however?
So it became difficult until you start putting certain things in place. So one of the things, as simple as it may sound, is we started to actually actively manage people's performance.
Okay.
Because what I wanted to remove out of our system, which exists a lot in creative businesses, is the subjectivity of performance. Right. So it's like if Musa likes Maanda, he's a star performer.
Yes.
And nobody's saying anything about it, but they know that Manda's actually he's actually okay.
Sure.
So we put in a performance management system.
Okay.
And believe it or not,
and this is not typical for creative space.
Not really, no. No, it's really they call it a organized chaos.
Yes.
And we kind of like, this is our thing. We organize and we're chaotic and we produce magic out of it, right?
Yes.
It's a black box, and then things go in, and then it comes out. So adding this level of structure was difficult because people didn't like it.
Sure.
But I was combating the inability for people to own, back to the issue of value, own the value that they bring into the business. Wow. So when we started doing performance management, nobody liked it. Then we created a system where every quarter we were looking at the business performance, and we were aligning that to your own performance.
Geesh.
And then I created a process where you got quarterly incentives.
Okay.
So if the business does well and you do well, you get a check every 3 months. Right?
Excellent.
So there's just a clear alignment, once again, it's the ecosystem view.
Sure.
If the ecosystem is flourishing, the members of the ecosystem should flourish, right? So we put that into place. We introduced very clear mandates around how power centers were being weaponized, and in our industry you've got like the executive creative director who becomes this like demigod, and he's got power. Then you got the finance people who got demigod power status. Then you got these like very specific, and so I tried to just remove all of that because the different contributors could actually contribute from a collaboration perspective, and they weren't being allowed to.
Sure. So what does that mean? Remove all of that? So
we took away the accountability structures and we made them much flatter, right? So where in many instances, as a classic example, when you're going to pitch, it's the ECD, it's the head of strategy, it's the MD, right?
Yeah.
The bomb squad.
Yeah.
And so you start introducing young people into the bomb squad, and you give them voice, and you give them opportunity, and you give them learning projects, and you allow them to have platform to present them back.
Excellent.
And so you just reduce the amount of power that is held by these three people that are always the ones that go and do what they need to do.
Wow.
And once again, that was also difficult because everyone knew that I could just keep quiet if the head of strategy was there. And I was like, no, you can't just keep quiet if the head of strategy is here. You need to talk. Because why? This brand is probably relevant to your lived experience, and you're sitting here with a mouthful of teeth. So you have to like prompt people, right? Because and once again, back to the issue around the master slave thing. They were used to sitting in the corner and speak when spoken to, and then if you speak up. So a lot of that was happening.
Yeah.
Then I think what was probably a turning point for me was helping our business to start shifting to a place where we wanted to have a direct correlation between our contribution to our client's success.
Okay.
And make people see the connection.
Okay.
So I started an internal program where I said every time we win a client that's listed, we're going to make it a soft policy that you invest a percentage of your quarterly incentive into that business. Right. So if we win Unilever,
yes,
the account that the team that won Unilever to pitch, number one, you need to buy some shares in Unilever through Easy Equities, and you need to continue to do so for the life that you're here.
Sure.
And then everybody else is encouraged to do the same.
Okay.
Because once again, the issue around ownership is that if you don't get young people to feel like they're actual shareholders in these businesses, there's a proximity, right? There's if this business tanks, it tanks. So you're trying to create this bridge that says, actually, I'm a shareholder in this business. I need to care. I need to show up in a way that when it does well, we do well. So that's back to the principle, once again, of shared value. So,
excellent.
So those are the kind of things we try to, put in place. And in the beginning, it was going over everyone's head. They didn't understand why.
Yeah, but it feels like all 4 of them are hard.
Yeah, they are. They are. They're not, anything that's worth it is not meant to be easy.
Gee whizzle.
So for me, it really lights my heart, because a junior copywriter comes into our business and leaves as a shareholder in AECI. That for me is the story I want to tell, right? The other day in our Exco group, we're having a conversation. One of our clients, AECI, have just done a whole restructure, turnaround, blah, blah, blah. And she's now reporting back to us in the Exco group saying, my stock is up 13% on AECI. That's good. I can't ask for anything else.
That is good.
Right? I've taken someone, I've made them a shareholder. They're in the system where they can see the value of their contribution.
Sure.
They're actively thinking about our clients, and they're looking at how they're performing. That for me is where it kind of all comes together.
Oh, beautiful. Now, tech and marketing today and into the future.
Yeah.
What say you?
I say lots. I say lots. Yeah, we are completely at a watershed moment, man. Sure. Completely at a watershed. I think our agency is almost a tale of two cities right now. To be very honest, we've got a very competent 3-company legacy structure. House of Brave, Bold and Bravado. They're doing well. But they're very much the legacy of our business. And what we are trying to do is modernize them, understanding what technology is there, blah, blah, blah. The psychology around how they work and the service proposition is still very much for an old kind of client in the old world. Then there's, the Forge of the world, which is our AI business. And that's kind of representing the future for us. In the beginning, I was trying to force that into these 3 businesses. And I found myself pushing water uphill because it's just a completely different paradigm around how marketing and creative agencies work. It's a completely different paradigm, down to the business model, right? The business model, as you'll know, is time and materials. Consultants, service people, we sell time and materials. This future state of what marketing is going to be is not going to be about time and materials. It can't be, because a copywriter that used to take you 10 hours to write your script can now be done by Gemini, Claude, Chat, whoever it may be, with a great prompt in 30 seconds. So we can't be doing time and materials. So there's a new thing we have to figure out. But you can't be figuring out the new thing while you're still trying to keep the old thing afloat. You know what I mean? So we've separated those worlds, and it's a bit schizophrenic, but it's the only way I can fully innovate with regards to AI, generative AI, new models, new billing models, new servicing models, etc. And we're very mindful of how in inverted commas, the legacy businesses are learning from this and trying to get better. But if I'm to summarize, the future of marketing is going to be about platforms, about systems and services. That's
say
what
more.
It's going to be.
So platforms, systems, and services.
Yeah.
So just some color there.
Yeah. So the previous model, being time and materials, was based on bodies, right? You win a new piece of work, you throw 50 bodies at it. When MTN moves their account from one agency to the other, literally, the new agency goes and hires all 50 of those people. I'm telling you, that's how you're laughing. I'm literally,
no way.
That's how it works. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because that's where the IP, the knowledge, that's where it all sits. So now if you've built a system and you built platforms and you built all of that, that knowledge is now no longer sitting in the 50 people you have to take.
I see.
So when you build a platform, you're ultimately trying to take a stab at what it is that you're going to have as a central operating system to the way you create, right? So we've designed Forge around understanding that we can't just put AI in like the strategy piece or AI in the creative piece. You have to put it across the board. So we've reinvented our operating system, which is really the platform. Based on reinventing the operating system, you now have a central, call it a spine, on which you can build different services. Those services are based on what your clients are willing to buy. Classic example, influencer marketing, right? You don't have to go and start an influencer agency. You have to find a way that you can create a service that can either be sold independently or integrated into our spine of business.
I see.
And you'll have lots of those depending on what you as a core business want to deliver. And because you package them as services, when you go to clients, you don't show up with saying you're going to pay us for a retainer. You're saying to them, you're going to pay us to use the technology that we're building to make better at servicing you. So that's where it's shifting towards. And I think, once again, it's a massive, massive shift from a psychology perspective when you've been used to selling hours.
Yeah.
And when you have a fundamental relationship with the more time I put in, the better the quality output, which is not wrong.
Yes.
But in the age of technology,
Yeah.
there's different ways to get that efficiency.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid clients can start to do this for themselves?
I'm sure they can try.
Try. Okay.
In our process, we believe in what we call the magic dust, right? Clients have been trying to replicate agency structures in their businesses for many years, right? And it's been frustrating because once you put like true creatives in a corporate structure, you kill them. So yes, to an extent, the systemization, yes, they could get that right. But the magic dust is very difficult to replicate. The magic dust is the difference. So you and I can both sit here on a laptop and we can both, I'll be on ChatGPT, you'll be on Claude. We'll both create great looking presentations.
Yes.
But when you put us in the next room and you say, sell it to this board of directors, the person who's going to sell it is the one that brings the magic touch. That's the dust that you can't replicate.
Okay.
So when clients say, we'll just build it all internally, yes, you can to a certain extent. But find me the team that's going to be able to draw the parallel between a particular data set, a consumer behavior and insight, and a big idea that can drive your sales. That's where that is going to be where humans still have a huge impact.
Good.
And so I think clients, yes, they will definitely try. And some of them that are progressive are already doing it.
Yeah.
The Nedbanks of the world have taken quite a firm stance. They're investing, aggressively in marketing technology. That's great.
Yeah.
But I also know that we've been in situations where the size of the marketing investment and technology investment inside a business was greater than our team on the outside, but we added more value because we understand the problem we need to solve, right?
Wow.
So I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah.
I think it's par for the cause. I think clients have to find ways to do it better for themselves. They have to create a sustainability and efficiency case for their board of directors. I get it.
Yeah.
But I think, I still very much believe in the magic dust of human ingenuity and creativity.
Let's talk the magic dust. You're in the business where there's just a lot of noise.
Yeah.
My attention is split like in seconds. What do you do to still say something that can keep me there for 30 seconds and kind of land the message in a meaningful way, that I can change my behavior now? Instead of buying this, I buy the other. What is that?
So I think that in itself hasn't changed.
Okay.
We've always referred to it as a human truth. A deeply undeniable insight about the person/consumer you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
Any process of creativity, if it's fundamentally hinged on a human truth or an insight, that's what converts at the point someone sees a piece of communication.
Okay.
You can tell when someone has considered something that connects with you on a deep level based on the insight that was either embedded into the thinking or the absence of the insight.
Sure.
Right? So either way you can tell.
Sure.
Now what we're doing better now is that we're able to produce multiple insights.
Right.
But a human being still needs to know which one is going to connect with the consumer, as an example.
Okay.
And that's the magic dust, right? So you can create an algorithm that creates you 600 insights.
Yeah.
But the person who can go, that's the insight.
That's the one.
That's the person who is going to be the magic dust, right?
Sure.
And that's where you get marketing communications that resonate. And then you also get marketing communications that don't resonate because you don't have an insight. You don't have a deeply resonant truth that a human being can go, that's right,
Yeah.
So that for me still is the exciting part about what brands and marketing have to contribute.
So your nephew comes up to you and say, I finished matric, I want to go study marketing.
Yeah.
What say you?
I say, why?
They want to do all the amazing things that you do. But, can I still go and study marketing and communication?
Yes, absolutely. Look,
and learn the 4 Ps and the however number of Ps.
You're giving away your age now. It's not 4 Ps. 4 Ps was in 1960. Gotta love it. No, so I think marketing as a discipline, there are some fundamentals important to understand.
Okay.
Right? There's the African saying that says, "Don't tear down fences until you know why they were put up in the first place."
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So traditional education, as we call it, there's some core tenets which I think are important for you to reckon with and understand.
Okay.
What marketing as a subject to study does is it gives you an understanding of an ecosystem in which goods are traded, and in which the idea of creativity increases the value of the ecosystem. That's a principle.
Excellent.
Right? So,
Excellent.
So when you understand the goods are traded, it could be between two people locally, it could be between three people across the globe, it could be in a community. That's always going to happen. It's commerce.
Yeah.
What creativity can you infuse into that dynamic to be able to increase the value of that dynamic? And that's where advertising and marketing come in.
Sure.
So that's still very important for people to understand, because why is it important for you to have a billboard? Why is it important for you to have a message? Why is it important to show up on Twitter? Why is it important? Why are all those things important? So if you don't understand those basic economic dynamic principles, then no. So I think there's still some value there. Where I think the problem is more so is on assessment.
Okay.
Right? So I think, and it's not even a marketing thing. I think it's across the board.
Yeah.
I think they are still they're assessing people incorrectly because of technology. Right. So technology now, people are getting their PhD stripped from them and all sorts of stuff because it's being written by some LLM.
Sure.
So I think the assessment is what has to change. We have to find better ways of assessing people.
Sure.
Once we put them through these 4 or 5 year, 3 year degrees. Because getting them to sit down and hold 29 COVIDs and that's where I think the mistake is.
I see.
I think it needs to become far more experiential. I think it needs to become far more practical.
Okay.
I was with the Association for Doctors the other day, and the same thing came up. And I said to them, you need to challenge how doctors are being trained. I mean, there's always, after you've done your doctorate, you go and you do in-field work.
Okay.
You might have to bring that in-field work into the actual the primary engagement, because when you've done psychology as an example, you don't write a psychology test. They give you a test subject. They say you're going to work with this individual for the next year. This is their psychological profile at month 1.
Yeah.
At the end of month 12, we need to have proven A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Now we're going to teach you all the stuff, but here's how you're going to prove that you've gotten your degree.
Wow.
That's what it has to shift to.
Sure.
It's the same thing from a marketing point of view, right?
Okay.
In theory, in year 1, when I get to WITS, they must say, here's a brand, there's the business, that's their office.
Yes.
You are their marketing manager.
Sure.
You're going to come to school and we're going to teach you the practical. You're going to go and you're going to build this brand.
Excellent.
At the end of 4 years, we're going to assess you as to
what did you do with the brand. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I think it should be.
Sure.
Right? Then the knowledge becomes more practical.
Okay.
And it's not exams and MCQs. That's what they used to call them, multiple choice questions. I think gone are those days.
I'm still in that world. Pardon me. So let's talk about building brave leadership.
Yeah.
And you do talk about the B Corps.
Yes.
Maybe just kind of just highlight that for us.
Yeah, B Corps are, it's such an interesting principle. It's like a North Star principle. North Star in that everyone should aspire to it. Some organizations can get there far easier and quicker than others, and most won't ever. The bigger ones will struggle to become a B Corp because the principles are just so fundamentally different to the core tenets of a traditional business.
Right.
But what it does ask you to do is engage critically on how you are running an enterprise into the future.
Okay.
So the sustainability principles that we all talk about theoretically are baked into a B Corp, right? The principles that from an extraction perspective, you have to be putting back as much as you take out of any ecosystem are baked into being a B Corp.
Sure.
So those are far easier to answer for newer companies, startups, etc. And similarly, it requires really, really brave leadership.
Sure.
There's some, in our world, there's some agencies that have said, as an example, they won't ever do any work on alcohol brands, right?
Okay.
That might be their philosophy as a brand, and they believe by doing so, they are attributing that to a more sustainable future.
Yeah.
That could be a position. It could be, the decision around how your hiring practices work.
Yeah.
You'd have seen on many websites at the bottom, there's now this non-slave trade clause. I don't know whether you've seen it.
No.
Many businesses now on global, look at the global websites.
Yeah.
They've got a policy about abiding to fair practice of labor that goes against slavery principles, right? That's a B Corp principle.
Okay.
Right. So, and once again, the master slave thing that I spoke to you about, organizations end up doing that without knowing it.
Sure.
So where brave leadership comes in is that you need people who can be so mindful of those things and keep asking those questions.
Sure.
Because as you know, when business as usual kicks in, when we have to deliver on the top line to get the bottom line, when all of that starts happening, you just get into the motion of trying to make sure you can extract.
Yeah.
But if you've got people that are interrupting the conversation and going, wait a minute,
Yeah.
In pursuit of this thing that we're trying to do, are we ensuring that we have our right principles around hiring practice, around ethics, around where we're sourcing from, etc.
Yeah.
And I think those become the brave leaders of tomorrow.
Okay.
They've got the fundamental technical technical knowledge. They are, equally, if not better, skilled from that point of view. But the high level of consciousness separates them from those in the past who just would turn a blind eye and just move forward.
And then for someone who might not know what the B Corps are and what are these principles, maybe a word or two?
Yeah, so B Corps effectively it's supposed to be an entity descriptor. So an organization that becomes a B Corp goes through a number of different, for lack of a better word, assessments.
Okay.
So it's a list of requirements that they give you as an organization to say, can you help us prove without a doubt that your organization as a whole is contributing to society, it's giving back to the economy, it's doing the right thing in the community, etc. So I think it is about 12 or 13 principles.
Yeah.
But then they ask you to produce evidence, right? So yes, you'll say, yes, our company is not doing any harm to the community, and they'll say, but show us how.
Yeah.
And you have to actually produce, the documentation, the whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So because of that process where they say, okay, it's one thing to say it, but now we're going to ask you to show it, that's where a lot of companies fall flat.
Sure.
Because, it's easy to get on a stage and say, we believe in DEI.
Yes.
We've got wonderful, principles around it and policies around it. But when they say produce the evidence, most fall flat. So they got principles. The principles themselves are kind of the fundamental tenets, and then they ask you to produce evidence around those principles, and based on the fact that you can prove those principles, you can get certified as a B Corp.
Excellent.
And so, as I said, it's really difficult for certain organizations because they weren't ever designed with that way inclined. When you're creating a startup now that knows that I want to create sustainable packaging, you're going to do that from first principles, right? So it's not going to be like you have to go back and then try and jippo it or whatever it may be. But as I said, when you think about the idea around shared value, think about the idea around bravery, I think that's the direction where organizations that have got leaders that are awake and that are trying to do the right thing, that's the kind of philosophy that they would subscribe to.
Sure. Yeah. As we draw towards the conclusion, some brave next steps.
So we're in a turbulent time as an industry.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's going to be turbulent sailing.
Okay.
I foresee everything is changing in our industry.
Yeah.
The demand curve has been shifted out of COVID. It hasn't ever gone back because things were being produced cheaper, faster, blah, blah, blah. That hasn't changed. Clients' expectations are now to have exactly the same quality at half the price and half the time.
Jeez.
That's going to get worse and worse. Sure. So it's still going to be turbulent times ahead of us. Secondly, there's a lot of people leaving our industry.
Yes. Speak about that.
Because there's a lot of burnout. If I go back to the principles of what bothered me about this industry, there's a lot of burnout. There isn't the fundamental understanding that the core asset is the human in our industry. We're not in mining. Mining, your asset is a mine. Our asset is humans. And so how you wrap your environment around humans, how you treat them, how you do that becomes really, really important.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people leaving our industry. Some of them with lots of knowledge and understanding, and some of them, rightfully so, they should leave. But it's not an easy place to be.
Yes.
Lastly, we have been very bad at mindfully developing talent for the future.
Sure.
I believe in the idea around apprenticeship. Our structure generally tries to accommodate for someone that's got knowledge and tenure and experience, and try and bring young people close to them and have them learn from that, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think our industry doesn't do that. So we haven't created sustainable pipelines for leaders.
Sure.
We were looking around recently for senior executives that understand how we think. We're not finding them.
Sure.
So they're all thinking about the world in the past lens and not the future lens.
Yeah.
And we're not creating anymore. Right. So it's going to be turbulent for our industry.
Yeah.
But as I said, there's some green shoots which make me very excited.
Yes, please.
There's some companies that are showing up and giving a sense that if you get the right talent to solve the correct problems, you can really create beautiful things. And so when I talk about the tale of two agencies, what you're trying to do with Forge is exactly that: get the right talent to solve the correct problems. And the hope is that creates something beautiful. And the hope is that we can take our legacy businesses and they can learn from that and grow.
Sure.
But in that is reinvention, right? In that is the invitation to have a new business model. Sure. In that is the invitation to unapologetically say we're going to do this and do it differently.
Okay.
That's difficult. But I think overwhelmingly the data tells me that we're in the age of the independent agency. So
independent agencies.
Yeah. So
which means
which means we're not owned by a big global network, you know.
Okay.
So, you know, there's the global networks like WPP, Dense Regis, those kind of guys. They every 5 years come into markets and sweep up and buy everybody up. And they are going through a lot because they've obviously always been the big powerhouses. So those big networks are struggling. The scale that they have is now their biggest weakness.
Sure.
And so the age of the independent agency is upon us, which is good for us.
Yeah.
But it does mean we have to figure out the right way to service our clients. So it's exciting times ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if someone is listening to you going, how do I sort of personally like change the way I lead now in this? Like what do you do to kind of help yourself navigate this tale of two cities? What does your routine look like? What do you get to read?
I ask ChatGPT. You know, it's funny, but it's not funny. So there's quite a bit of research at the moment that's showing the difference between how generations use LLMs.
Yes.
Right, and it's fascinating because millennials and above, most of them use these LLMs like we use Google.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
you know, and there's a technology principle that says the way we use current technology, our easiest reference is the previous technology.
Sure.
So when YouTube came, we used to take TV ads and put them on YouTube because we knew TV.
Yes.
So now we've got LLMs like ChatGPT. We'll use them like we use Google because we know Google.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But the younger people are not using it like we use it like Google.
Okay.
They're literally using it as an advisor to their lives.
Sure.
Right? They're literally having ongoing conversations with these LLMs.
Sure.
Right? And they're using the LLM to compute data sets. And they'll wake up in the morning and say, I'm not feeling so great. I ate ABC last night. What should I be eating today?
Geez.
You know, and that's not a difficult question.
Yeah.
To an LLM that's got access to the world's knowledge. It's really not a difficult question.
But it's not something that I will do.
It's not something that you would do.
Yeah.
So they'd ask the question, you should try and, this is what your meal plan should be for the day. I got it in 30 seconds. So I'm now mindful of what I should eat, right?
Sure.
Now I'm eating the thing I need to eat. And I'm going, you know what? Should I study? Should I actually go and study? I'm thinking about maybe design or
tennis.
actual science.
Yeah.
What should I do?
Yeah.
So they ask the LLM. The LLM says, okay, because it's now got some context, it knows you. It says, you don't have a design qualification, but if you do these three things, you could be competent. But why don't you consider these other options? Right? So it's a conversation.
Sure.
So what's interesting for me is when you ask me the question around, how do you get your head around all of this stuff? If you're going to use the technology for what it's good at, it's like having one big brain that just extends your ability to do stuff.
Sure.
And I find that, I call it the older generation, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Those of us that are slightly more mature might find that to be a weird concept.
Yeah.
But it is what is driving a lot of value for younger people. Right? Number two, you've got the experience, you've got the knowledge, you've got the wherewithal. Yeah. So imagine having like a super consultant that you can just ask anything and help you accelerate stuff quicker. You're going to move a lot faster and make bigger decisions.
Sure.
Now, that's one part of the equation.
Yeah.
Where I think the underbelly is that, as people have said, is that now starts to create a deficiency and a crutch in your own ability to make decisions, to navigate, and to do all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it becomes quite interesting in how we self-regulate in the age of LLMs and AI. Because if ultimately everybody is using, these technologies as a co-pilot, the question is, what are you actually then going to be doing? What is your brain then being used for? Which is the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And we had the same issue with our creatives, because I said to our creatives, when we build Forge, and Forge can help you to brainstorm, and the 10 hours it takes you to brainstorm a good idea, I can do for you in 5 minutes. Yeah. What do you now do with your time? Right? I think it's a huge challenge.
Play some golf?
Play some golf. That's actually the answer. Right?
Okay.
The answer is become more human, right? The answer is go do the things that make you feel more human.
Sure.
Because if we have more humans walking around that are not dead and they're not burning out, they're not doing. If we have more humans in good state, surely that lifts the state of humanity.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the theory that I always challenge people with, because it's something that I haven't figured out, but it's certainly something that we grapple with.
Yeah.
I had to do that because I lost my eyesight for a period.
Sure.
So I had to learn all these new AI tools. So I was kind of forced to do it.
Sure.
But since I learned all of them, I can't unlearn them. So I can't go backwards now. And so
you're using these tools without vision.
Yes. So I've got a condition called keratoconus.
Okay.
So that at some point it meant that I had to take out my lenses. So I have to use hard contact lenses to see. At the end of last year, basically what happened is that the lenses were basically suffocating my eyes. So I had to remove them. And when I take out my lenses, my vision is minus 13 or something like that. So I couldn't see for about 4 weeks because my cornea had to settle before they could assess it. So in that period, even sitting here with you, I'd see that there's a face. I wouldn't be able to tell that it was you. I couldn't read emails. I couldn't, it was so heartbreaking. Like my kids, I couldn't make out which, you pick your kids up from school and I'm going, oh, which one is which? And it was just bad, right? So I went through I was depressed. I did all, and then I thought to myself, how can I actually make this work?
Yeah.
And then I started to tamper with the technologies that were there. There's a platform called 11 Labs.
Okay.
That I started realizing people could transcribe my emails into voice notes on 11 Labs and send the voice note to me, and I could respond to the voice note into WhatsApp, voice to text, and then send it back. So I had to find these hacks. So when I started realizing I could do this, I'm like, okay, so I can be a human, so I can, tamper with 11 Labs. And then as I was doing that, I then started reading, okay, well, when I can speak to this thing and it can convert it into text, I can also do kind of an edit job of it, just by prompting it. And then when I was using my lenses for small windows of time, I had to cram 8 hours worth of work into 2 hours. And I'm like, how do I do it quickly? And so I learned all these, tricks and tools of AI. So I was forced to do that.
So you've created capacity.
Absolutely.
So your handicap should be I don't know, single digit. Because what else?
I got 2 kids and a wife. Nah, not gonna happen.
Okay, fair enough.
But to your point, it gave me time. It gave me a lot of time. I unfortunately in my case I had to, but it gave me the time. I then sat and I thought, okay, now that I have more time, what do I do? And the answer is not fill it with more meetings. The answer is, you should be responsible enough to show up better as a person, right? So that's the invitation, I think, for professionals.
Wow, Musa. Wow. Thank you. What an incredible conversation. And thank you for writing the book and also being here with us and sharing this insight. So when is the next book?
Sure, the pressure.
No, you have time now.
It's on the way. Yeah, it's on the way. I've been speaking to Tracy. I've been like, Tracy. Yes. No, it's on the way. I've got a title. I've got big ideas.
Lovely.
So hopefully in the next 8 months or so.
And then we'll see you back here in studio.
With pleasure.
Excellent.
With absolute pleasure.
No, thanks a million. So Musa, we ask all our guests these 2 questions. One is if they can sort of give our listeners a challenge.
Okay.
Someone has been listening to us this whole time, just one challenge to take away. And number 2, if you could recommend a book, a resource, a bot, or any of these tools, what will it be?
Okay, so the challenge could be a fun one or it could be a boring one. Okay, so the challenge in the spirit of embracing AI.
Yeah.
What I've started doing of late is I'm trying to build a good relationship with my wife.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, part of building any good relationship is communication.
Yes.
So what I've realized is that often when my wife and I are at odds with each other, like happens normally.
Yes.
And I'm trying to communicate with her via WhatsApp.
Yes.
I've found that when I type my first WhatsApp and I copy and paste that, and I take that WhatsApp and I give it to AI and I say, make this message respectful, loving, and progressive. And then I send that message to my wife.
Yes.
It builds my relationship with her.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So test this out. And I promise you, this is the truth. The first thing you'll type is going to be filled with emotion. You're going And then if you send it, it's going to have the opposite effect. Right? Because you're trying to communicate and express.
Yes.
So what I've challenged people to do these days is to understand how LLMs work. Is that copy and paste that message. Don't delete. Just copy and paste it. Keep it separately.
Yeah.
Take the same
so
message.
You must still keep that.
Keep it because you're going to reference now.
Okay.
Keep the same message and the energy you had when you were... Keep that message. Take the same message, copy it and say, dear chat, dear Gemini, whoever it is, make this message respectful, loving, and progressive in building a relationship.
Stunning.
And then, number 1, look at the 2 outcomes. Then send the one that chat gave you. You'll be husband of the year. So that's or partner of the year. So that's my first challenge. So women who are in relationship with men, make this message respectful and the things that you say, and then send it. I promise you, it is like the first time I did it, I just thought to myself, let me try. Because obviously, you don't know whether this is gonna work.
Yeah.
If I'd sent message 1, shame, I'd have been in the dog box. But because I sanitized it on ChatGPT and I sent it, the response from my wife was phenomenal. I love you, my king. You know the things. The things you wish for. So try it. So challenge number 1.
Okay.
And you must tell us how it goes.
Yes,
but I promise it works like a bomb. Related to challenge number 1.
Yes.
Create yourself what I call a hit list, high irritation list. All the things you hate doing that take up a lot of time.
Sure.
And then do research around what AI can help you fix.
Oh, beautiful.
Right. So that's
Love that. Love the 2 challenges, especially the first one.
I promise you. Do it tonight. You'll call me and you'll say, Musa, you saved my marriage.
Now let's go to a recommendation.
Yeah. So I'll stay. Once again, I'm a tech guy. So from an AI point of view, a lot of people use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
What I've become really good at doing now is understanding what each one is good for. So
good.
Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude,
Excellent.
they're all different.
Help us, please.
And the one I think people don't really explore a lot of is called Claude. It's built by a tech company called Anthropic.
Yeah.
Claude has got the best balance of mathematical human logic as well as emotion.
Right.
So you tend to find AI is either really good at the logical stuff or really good at the emotional stuff, and not both.
Sure.
So what that means that if you ask ChatGPT to give you the square root of 167,433,
yes,
it might get it wrong because it's not good at the maths.
I see.
It's getting better, but it's not good at it. But if you ask Grok to do the same thing, it'll give you the actual right number.
Right.
So Claude AI is the blend of both of those worlds.
Beautiful.
So as a tool for some people to use, it'll give you enough human intuition and the touchy-feely, but also really accurate logic.
Excellent. Oh, wow. Musa, that's been exceptional. Thank you.
My pleasure, bro.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Musa. It's coming back next week. This conversation can just end right here. Because we need to talk about, how did Ignatius kind of implemented this thing.